All right, guys, just quickly, let's go through some things. I wanted to explain to you guys a particular concept that one of you guys asked me about. And there's a concept I actually typed in the Hebrew phrase, which is Ein Adam Mesim Atzmo Rasha. And it's a specific Talmudic principle. Just give me a sec. So, what is that principle? That principle basically affects us in this concept here. A person does not make themselves a wicked person. That's the exact translation. But what it actually means is it's got different contexts. It's got legal contexts, different implications, and philosophical concepts. So let's look at what the legal context would be. It would be self-incrimination. So a person's admission of guilt in a criminal case is not considered valid testimony against themselves. For example, if someone confesses a crime that carries a penalty under Jewish law, such as capital punishment, there it's easier to make sense. In other words, on the basis of two witnesses, you can convict, especially as far as capital punishment is concerned, not the basis of one, or corporal punishment, lashes. So one person's confession alone does not suffice to convict them. And the basis of the two valid witnesses comes from Devarim, which is Deuteronomy chapter 19, verses 15. So what's the rationale? It's based on the idea that people are inherently biased, firstly, in terms of their own case, and they might not have the proper judgment about themselves. So that goes in terms of deeming yourself guilty as well as pronouncing yourself innocent. So you have two different sorts of people in the world. Some people have got a low self-esteem and they feel that they're not holding at a high enough level, and they just don't know their self-worth. And you get, unfortunately, that's in the minority. Those people are much easier to deal with because they're at least good human beings that are trying. But the majority of people feel that they're indispensable to the world and that their self-worth supersedes the worth of others. And we're living in that society now with wokeism. What's the proof? If I want to identify as something fictitious like a different gender and a specific unique part of that gender, you have to acknowledge my mental delusion. And if you don't acknowledge me and my feelings, then at the end of the day, you're very cruel and wicked. And in the meantime, who's to say we have to indulge non-factual delusion? So the one rationale is that we bias in our own cases. And what do the rabbis interpret this as? Is a safeguard against self-harm or coercion. So what do we mean self-harm? Is that whilst people might not want to lash themselves, a lot of people don't have the balls to commit suicide and are quite happy to have a mechanism where it can be done to them. And you might think, well, that's crazy. But people have, for life assurance policies, hired hitmen before to take them out. Look at that Brett Kebbel example. But as I always say, if you've got to be careful you choose, because if you're a perfectionist, you can do it better yourself. He didn't end up getting paid out. Just one other thing that you've got to bear in mind is the halakhic rationale is that one witness is certainly not enough apart from this issue. Then there's the legal issue of coercion. What do we mean? Is that you could be intimidated. Lance, we touched this issue in Bava. You weren't there. And that issue is, what do we do with a document? Because a person can say they were forced to sign it because the person came with three thugs and was going to knock their teeth through their windpipe if they didn't sign the document. So there are concepts of coercion. So that's why self-recrimination is also a problem. It's not just that party that wants to damage themselves. Sometimes other parties would want to damage them as well. So that's one of the legal concerns. Then one other point is that there are civil law exceptions, and that's actually in monetary disputes. Because a person's admission, body mikzat, is known as, how do you explain it? It's like a full confession, basically. So a full confession in monetary disputes is valid and can be used to obligate somebody financially. And this is the issue we're dealing with here in the example of Adam Zommerman. And we're speaking specifically in a case of a monetary punishment at which one witness would suffice, as far as that's concerned. Certainly not in corporal capital punishment. Now, Dine Mamanot, which is the din, the law of compensation, is treated differently than criminal law. The issue that's going to come up with Rabbi Akiva is, well, what if you treat it as a penalty or a fine? Then would the same laws apply of confession? Okay. So some of the Talmudic sources is, Gavin, you weren't there with Rav Simcha Steinhauer. You only came to him a couple of years after I did. In 9b in Sanhedrin, it discusses the invalidity of self-incrimination in capital cases, if you want to find the source, Gav, because you've got the books. 9b.
Yeah. No, I don't think I have the first book.
Oh, okay.
Not sure.
So, guys,
I've got
anybody, that's the invalidity of self-incrimination in capital cases only. It doesn't really talk about corporal cases there, because Sanhedrin deals with death penalty cases. Then if you've got Ketubot in 18b to 19a, basically explores the limits of self-admission and when it cannot be used in legal proceedings, because a ketubah is a obviously legally binding marital contract. Now let's just look at practical implications. Is in criminal cases, the reason there are no guilty pleas is because Jewish courts don't allow individuals to plead guilty as a substitute for proper evidence and witnesses. Okay? Why? Because we're worried about coercion, primarily. And just remember, the same is true in the other way around, Lance. There's a concept that the person wishing to extract money from his fellow is the one that has to bring evidence that his fellow owes him money or damaged him in some way. You can't just extract money. And so too, you can't plead guilty for a crime unless there's proper evidence against you and witnesses. What happens if a case where we discussed where you stole something? Again, it goes back to the monetary obligation of returning lost property or that which you stole. But more than that, you can take all your money now and go to the casino and blow it on blackjack or on picking red in roulette, and nobody can stop you from using your own money any way you see fit. So that doesn't need proper evidence. You can allocate your money. Now, as far as witness disqualification is concerned, if someone admits to committing a sin that disqualifies them from being a valid witness, the court does not automatically disqualify them based on their admission. I want to ask you guys, when would a person disqualify themselves as a witness? When do you think? Guys?
After judgment has been given.
Sorry?
After judgment has been given?
No. Okay, so I was unclear with the
Damon,
question. Yeah?
if it's been proven that the testimony is false,
No, well, if
then
it's
they can't be a legit witness.
there's not self-confession yet. The fact of it is there's external third-party evidence against you. That's not confession. Confession or admission is before you are of your own volition that you come to the party, before you are almost caught. It's like I remember there was a black gentleman that when I was running a factory, I said to him, "Did you steal such and such? This is what you stole." I never did. Hobo. I never stole this. I said, "Are you sure?" He said, "Yes." I showed him the footage. I said, "What do you have to say for yourself?" "Sorry." I said, "I don't trust you, mate. I don't trust you. Can't work for me anymore. Now that evidence has been presented against you, I can't trust you." So I'll give you a couple of examples where a person might not want to be a witness. We alluded to the fact that if somebody was inverted commas, happily married with children and a business, if they were caught with their secretary having witnessed a particular crime, they're going to say, "Where were you?" And he's going to have to explain why him and his secretary were out at the exact precise moment in the Hyatt Hotel discussing business on the third floor instead of at the office. And that would cause him to lose half his assets in a divorce settlement and custody of the children. Then you have an issue of coercion. Suddenly, when people testified, there was some guy that was assaulted by John Gotti in a telephone booth. And when he came to the trial and he realized who was testifying against, he had convenient amnesia. So there are cases where people want to use confession of invalidity of them being a witness in order that they don't have to testify for reasons we've explained. The third reason is that court cases take a lot of time. In America, one has to do jury duty. And whilst some people enjoy it because they don't have much of a life, normal people want to get out of it, but it's your national service. Okay? And some people try and get out of it by showing biases. By the way, the American justice system is disgusting because you're taking 12 individuals that know nothing about the law and you're allowing them to be emotionally swayed by the most convincing oil slick snake salesman on the face of a planet who happens to be a lawyer. The concept of the jury system was that its individual judge could be corrupt, and therefore you wouldn't want your life or your future at the whim of one particular person that could take a dislike to you, even if they were expert in the law. And that's why the Torah system is so perfect, because we have 3 judges in many, many cases. So you've got impartiality, unless it's a relatively minor monetary dispute, and you can always, by the way, appeal the case to a higher court, as you know. So that's one of the concepts.
Yeah, I wonder what, just talking about just 1 second, sorry to interrupt you. It's interesting that America never went for that option of 3 judges. They must have thought about it because it makes it's more expensive, but it does make more sense. It's a better method. Huh?
It's a far better method. It's absolutely crazy, by the way, crazy.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure, but we see where America is today, and it explains a lot. Now, the other point I wanted to make is the emphasis on external evidence. So the principle underscores the Talmudic reliance on external evidence, okay? You need witness testimony, you need physical proof to ensure justice, and then you can avoid self-destructive admissions. So we need to treat everybody as though they are innocent until proven guilty. There's some legal systems that prove guilty until your default position is guilt until being proved innocent. It is actually quite a good thing of the American judicial system that you're innocent until proven guilty. And by the way, it's not just North Korea that makes you guilty until proven innocent. Even England, in many legal cases, you were guilty until proven innocent. One of them are laws of perjury and literary intellectual property, by the way. And that's why there were cases, when there were cases against the Holocaust perpetrators, that some of those cases were actually held in the UK. So that's something interesting to note. It's not just North Korea. And
then Iran's got a very good, sorry to interrupt, Iran's got a great system. There you're guilty until proven guilty.
yeah, that's true. That's why I didn't bring it up.
Yeah.
Although I would think that rape charges and theft, I could leave, if I went to Dubai, I could leave my wallet on the beach because somebody losing their hands is a wonderful deterrent. They've got one or two things reasonably right. Okay.
I just it's funny enough, Dustin, that's one of my son's best friends. He just came back from Dubai. They spend a lot of time there. They leave their car keys, a lot of them in the car. Just saying, different way of life. Very interesting.
It is a different way of life. One other thing quickly before we get to this other issue of Dubai, you must know if any of you guys look at the FIFA World Cup, wasn't it held? What year was it held in Dubai, Kevin?
Qatar, 2022. Not
Yes.
Dubai,
If you
Qatar.
want to, Qatar, yeah, but it is a Middle Eastern country, isn't it?
Gulf state, yes.
Gulf state. So if you look on Google at how many people died in the summer
Yeah.
heat constructing those stadiums and the infrastructure, there were thousands upon thousands a day. Okay.
And nothing got done about, and it was
No,
swept under the
not
carpet.
only did
Yeah.
nothing get done, but the family had no legal reparations. You were basically said,
Because
if you want to earn a pittance, you can go there, and if the heat kills you, there's nothing we can do. And then in the middle of these hotels, they treat people like first class guests, but the rest of the citizens, it's like going to Santon City as a tourist, but you've got Alexander Township and abject poverty around. So they're not the place to look at. Let me just finish my one or two points and we get back to the Gemara. But this is some of the relevant issues. And one of them is the philosophical insight about human dignity and self-protection, because the principles that we have in halacha and these Gemara cases reflect the value Judaism places on preserving human dignity, by even to the degree that we're avoiding scenarios where individuals might harm themselves, whether intentionally or under duress, by being coerced by other people that would bully them. And one point of judicial caution is that it's a very, very cautious legal system the Talmud has in criminal matters, ensuring that individuals are not condemned without proper due process. In other words, it's one thing if you feel that you owe money and you wish to pay. Nobody can stop you of where you use your money. And we want to not aggravate the court system, so there's penalties if you are lying. But just because admittance of theft is not self-recrimination in the sense that it's going to have anything other than the fact that you're not going to aggravate the courts. It's different to corporal or capital punishment. Okay. Now, let's proceed on. I'm not sure whose Arthur's talking to. I think the whole Sherry hasn't heard it all, but I love his sharing spirit. It's lovely to see, even if you
Actually, I have been listening to you, by the way.
have
I
you?
love the Dubai story. About that, yes, and about that thing about the guy having affair and all that stuff, right? The way you can get around it is don't tell them you tell them busy fiddling with typewriting. Get off.
You're fiddling with the typewriter. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, you've been pushing down on the keys all evening. All right, let's get on with it. So, where did we? All right. So just to get back to that point of the Gemara. So as we know, Rabbi Akiva says he considers the hazama, the reciprocal penalty, a fine, the reciprocal punishment rather than compensation. And he's got support from Rabbah, who uses a capital case, who says, even though the Eidim Zomimim haven't done anything practically, because after the verdict was given, the second set of witnesses caught them out, they're therefore executed because they were caught as Eidim Zomimim, but they didn't actually cost the victim his life. And Rav Nachman uses the same point in terms of a case, a monetary case, and he said, even when they testify, the money is still in the hands of the rightful owner, and yet they have to pay the hazama penalty. So basically, him and Rabbah both agree with Rabbi Akiva and cite different examples that at the end of the day, it's a penalty to them because it's not done to the defendant that they wished to cost money. It didn't cost the defendant money. Okay. Now, as far as the Rabbonim is concerned, we said very clearly that they consider it compensatory in nature because it's not a fixed amount. It's basically an amount equivalent to what the verdict cost the defendant. The fact that the verdict was not carried out because a second set of witnesses came is a side issue. But a verdict, because of their testimony, was put against the defendant, and therefore they have to compensate him for what they would have cost this person in the verdict, because it is quid pro quo for the verdict, not for the intent. Okay, that's the rabbinic opinion. So then we went yesterday and we said, look, there's a statement by Rav, and there are two opinions of Rav. The first one was from Rav Yehuda, who said witnesses pay according to their share. And we said, what are you talking about? What does this mean? So we said if it's a financial case of Adim Zomamim, each witness that plotted against his fellow will pay his share of the monetary total. So if they plotted to have this defendant as two of them to cost him 200 zuz, each one of them gives 100 zuz. If it's lashes and they plotted to have him have 40 lashes, we don't split the lashes and give each one of them 20. Basically, what the intent was to give him 40 lashes, and they must each feel 40 lashes. So we're quite hard as far as that's concerned. Now, the one issue is that why did Rav Yehuda bring this up? Because we're saying that there could be a case, according to Rav Yehuda and Rav, where there's a second set of witnesses that turn around and said that one of the Eidim Zomamim was with him in a different location, so they couldn't have been there to have witnessed the event. So therefore, according to Rav Yehuda and Rav, he should pay his share of the financial penalty. Okay? And that's what's given over based on the fact that two witnesses was able to prove that one of them was a conspiring witness. The other one doesn't have to pay. And Lance asked a good question, what happens yesterday? I said it's thrown out of court, because unless you've got two witnesses, nothing will stick against the defendant. But for trying to make an innocent person pay that sort of money, he would certainly pay his share based on two witnesses placing him in a different location at that time. Now, the argument against Rav Yehuda on Rav's statement is there's a brisa that states, well, that can't exactly happen, because a Zomim witness does not pay money. We talk about a financial case here, unless both of them have been found to be Zomimim. Therefore, Rav can't be teaching the example that Rav Yehuda would use of saying there's a second set of witnesses that caught one of the witnesses out. So what could the alternative be? And that alternative is Rava explanation of Rav, who says, listen, this person admitted to lying, admitted to being a plotting witness. And therefore, the partner's not admitting to anything, and he doesn't have to pay his share of the Eidim Zomamim because he didn't admit to anything. But the person that self-incriminated themselves, oh God. Yeah, can you see me? Can you hear me? Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you. Couldn't see you, but we can hear you.
Okay. Go sit down, special girl. Go sit down. Just hang on, guys. Give me a sec. She's sitting on the Gemara. I kid you not. Just hang on. No, Nunchkin. Come, Lala. Good girl. Yeah, well. Sit down. Okay, just sit down. You're a good girl. All right. Apologies. It lacks that professional polish this year. I'll give you that much. Apologies. So, Rava's explanation on Rav, Lance, is that a person by their own confession can obligate themselves to pay their share of the Hazama penalty, but we can't do anything against the other one that keeps up the facade. Okay? So that was the issue that's brought forward. Okay? But it does leave us with a slight problem, and I'll tell you what that problem is it can't be according to Rabbi Akiva. It can't be according to Rabbi Akiva. Why not? Why not, guys? Guys, why not? Any of you?
I didn't actually hear you, so if you can repeat that, then I can work it out for you.
According to Rava's explanation of Rav, who says that a person can incriminate or confess that he was a Adam Zomamim, or he was one of them, and therefore he would pay what he intended to cost his share to the defendant. Why doesn't this work with Rabbi Akiva? Come on, guys.
Because this is a penalty, and this is not. This is a compensation.
And therefore, well, we don't know. We don't know. We don't know what.
Well, isn't it the penalty for the group? You can't split the penalty.
No. That it appeared that no. So let me just clear it up. It appeared that Rav Yehuda's case on Rav said you can't use the example of a secondary set of witnesses to make him pay his particular share if they were able to say that we don't know about the other witness, but the one was certainly with us in a different location at the time he purported to be at this location and the event took place. So we're saying that the brisa can't work with that the second set of witnesses, but we're saying that according to Rav on Rav, that the brisa can work with somebody confessing that they lied and therefore they owe their share of the Adam Zomamim money, their portion. The reason it doesn't work with Rabbi Akiva is not because it's a penalty or compensation. The fact of whatever Rabbi Akiva's reason is not relevant to this. The reason is Rabbi Akiva says he doesn't pay. And according to both Rav Yehuda and Rav, both of them Rav says you pay. You pay on your own confession. If you pay with two witnesses, for sure you pay on your own confession. And even if you don't hold by the two witnesses, you pay on your own confession. So in other words, Rav's opinion, no matter which opinion quotes Rav, is going against Rabbi Akiva. Because Rabbi Akiva is saying you don't pay on the basis of your own confession. And Rav is saying you do. Doesn't matter whatever Rabbi Akiva's reason is. It might also hold that. Do you get what I'm saying? So then we have to go back to Gavin's question. Are they reconcilable? And does Rav hold that it's a penalty or compensation? Because if you hold it's compensation, then obviously that's the reason he makes him pay, whereas Rabbi Akiva says it's a penalty, it's a fine, a knas, compared to mammon. If they both hold it's a penalty, then we've got to understand that this might be a different particular case at which they don't agree. Okay? So, one of the problems that you've got here is that the Gemara asks, the big problem we have here, according to Rav's question on Rav, is that do we accept a person retracting their testimony? Because Lance, basically, if I have to turn around as a witness and say, listen, I did plot against this person, I was never in that location, I feel guilty, I'm actually retracting my previous testimony that I saw this particular defendant committing a illegal act at this time and place. So I'm retracting my previous testimony by admitting now that I plotted against this person. So we am asking you, Lance, from what we did yesterday, are we allowed to do such a thing? And if yes, yes. If no, why? And if Lance can't answer, anyone can. I can't hear you. You're on mute. Saved by the mute.
Yeah, I think it should be a yes, because if you didn't do the crime, you're guilty of something else. You're guilty of lying to the court and wasting your time and everything else. But ultimately, the judges want to know what the truth is. And you need to come forward and confess.
Okay, so Lance is bringing up a good point that the truth should prevail, no matter what. If that's the truth, that's the truth. So Lance's question is addressed by the fact that at the end of the day, we'll see how the court deals with it. But the problem is that one of the halachic laws is you cannot retract testimony. Okay? In other words, there's a rule in the Gemara that says once a witness has testified and his testimony has been completed by the equivalent of the stenographer that they had in those days, he cannot alter his testimony, and anything which he says that changes his original testimony is inadmissible in court. Thus, the court can certainly not accept as testimony his admission that he lied. And if the court does not accept his retraction, there's no basis for obligating him to pay the hazama penalty. And what this is a proof of is
even if it's going to cost someone's life?
Okay, just let me finish 1 second. What this is a proof of is, Gavin, is it doesn't matter whether Rabbi Akiva calls it a penalty or confession. If you can't retract testimony, and then the New Testament is inadmissible in court, then you can't pay by your own retraction of testimony, because you only get the reciprocal penalty if there are another 2 witnesses against you, because you can't undo it by your testimony, because your previous testimony that was locked in and another's testimony determines yourself as the testimony going against the defendant. Lance is asking a separate question, which is fair, because then what do we do with the innocent defendant? Do they still get punished? But the point of it is the reciprocal penalty does not, that share at which he intended to cost somebody is not cost unto him. Now, Lance, we're talking here about a monetary case. If you look at the Gemara in 382, this entire discourse about Rav, and in the 5th Mishnah, when it brings the brisa, it's only talking monetary cases. Because we learned that even in a criminal case, never mind Eidim Zomimim, you can't confess to get yourself the death penalty or lashes. Oh, you can only confess to owing money. So therefore, it wouldn't apply this retraction of testimony in that case, because your original testimony can't be changed. And that's what it's saying. If you said, this is what I said, and now I'm saying something different, that would have to be readdressed as a separate issue. But what we're saying in principle now is that since that testimony still stands because alterations are inadmissible in court, there's no obligation for asking him to pay the hazama penalty of his share, because this testimony, the new one, is ignored. Okay? In terms of how that's addressed, it'll go through it in later dafs, and it does deal with it separately in Sanhedrin and Bava Kama, etc. All we are talking about now